Good evening, my dear students. This is Mrs. Suhir Zaki, and we are going to start our final revision to prepare ourselves for the final exam for this year. Second prep students, let's start our session for today. We are going to solve the Model 1 exam in our session today. Our lesson objectives: solving different types of questions, practicing different ideas. Let's start by solving our first question and its first part, A. Choose the right answer. Number 1. The relationship between net force, mass, and acceleration represents the law of Newton's first law, Newton's second law, Newton's third law, universal gravitation. And our right answer will be Newton's second law. Newton's second law of motion defines the mathematical relationship between the motion of an object and the forces acting upon it, and commonly expressed by the formula F equals m divided A. Choose the right answer. Number 2. The type of cell division that produces cells containing half the chromosome's number of the original cell is the mitosis, meiosis, binary fission, cytoplasmic division. And our right answer is the meiosis cell division. In meiosis cell division, the parent cell produces 4 daughter cells with the haploid number equals n, which is half the number of chromosomes of the original cell. Let's go to the second part of our first question. B. Give reason. Number 1. A person feels warm when the quicklime powder is dissolved in water. The reason a person feels warm when quicklime is dissolved in water is that the process is an exothermic reaction. When the quicklime, which is the calcium oxide of course, reacts with water, it undergoes the chemical change to form the calcium hydroxide. During this reaction, an amount of thermal energy is released into the surrounding, which causes the temperature of the container and the water to rise sharply. The chemical equation for this reaction as follows: calcium oxide, which is the quicklime, plus water gives calcium hydroxide plus heat energy. Give reason. Number 2. Action and reaction don't cancel each other. Action and reaction forces don't cancel each other because they act on 2 different objects. According to Newton's third law, forces always exist in pairs, but those forces never act on the same body. For a force to cancel out, the equal and opposite forces must be applied to the same object, and because action and reaction are applied to separate objects, they cannot be added together to reach equilibrium, and so they don't cancel each other. Give reason number 3. An ovum contains half the chromosome number of a somatic cell. Why? An ovum contains half number of chromosomes because it's a gamete produced through the process of meiosis. And the purpose of having half the number of genetic material, which is the haploid number, is to ensure that when fertilization occurs, the resulting offspring has the correct, which is the full or the whole set of chromosomes, and gives a diploid zygote cell. If an ovum contains the full number of chromosomes, the chromosome count would double with every generation, and so an ovum contains only half the chromosome number of a somatic cell. Give reason number 4. Temperature decreases as altitude increases. Temperature decreases as altitude increases because the atmosphere becomes less dense and the air pressure drops at higher elevation, and so as we move up, the temperature decreases by 6.5 degrees for each 1 kilometer high. Question 2. Complete the following statements. Number 1. Physical quantities that require magnitude and direction to be defined are called dash quantities. We have studied that there are two types of physical quantities: vector physical quantities and scalar physical quantities. In vector physical quantities, we define this quantity by both magnitude and direction, while in scalar physical quantity, we need only the magnitude of the quantity. So, in our case, we require magnitude and direction to be defined, so it's the vector quantity. Complete the following statement. Number 2. In the northern hemisphere, winds are deflected due to the Coriolis effect. In the northern hemisphere, winds are deflected to the right due to the Coriolis effect. Of course, the Coriolis effect is a force caused by the rotation of the Earth. Because the Earth rotates faster at the equator than at the poles, objects moving across the surface appear to curve rather than travel in a straight line. So, in the northern hemisphere, winds and currents always deflect to the right of their path of motion. What happens if? Number 1. Water is used to extinguish sodium fire. When water is used to extinguish a sodium fire, violent explosion will occur, making the fire more dangerous. As sodium is a very active alkali metal that reacts aggressively with water, and when they meet, they create hydrogen gas that is a flammable gas, and explodes with extreme heat. This reaction is highly exothermic reaction and is usually causes explosion. Of course, this is the equation that shows this reaction. When water is used to extinguish the sodium fire, water reacts with sodium, giving sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas, which is a flammable gas that explodes, causing more dangerous situation. What happens if number 2, equal forces acting in opposite directions affect a body? If two equal forces act in opposite directions on single body, they form balanced forces. As a result, the net force will be equals 0. Since the forces are equal in magnitude but opposite in direction, they mathematically cancel each other. So, the net force is 0 since the forces are equal in magnitude but opposite in direction. So they mathematically cancel each other out. What happens if number 3, crossing over doesn't occur during meiosis? If crossing over doesn't occur during meiosis, the primary consequence is a significant decrease in genetic diversity among offspring. What happens if number 4, the Earth stopped rotating on its axis? What will happen? If Earth stopped rotating on its axis, the first result is no day and night cycle. The most immediate change would be the loss of the 24-hour cycle. One side of Earth would face the sun for 6 months, while the other side would face away darkness for the rest of the year. Number 2, extreme temperature shifts. Extreme temperature shifts without the rotation to distribute the solar energy, as the sun-facing side would become hot and the other side will become extremely cold. Number 3, change in Earth's shape and oceans. The Earth is currently an oblate shape at the equator because of its rotation. If it stopped, it would change in shape and gravity would pull the oceans toward the poles. This would likely create two massive polar oceans and a giant dry continent. Also from the results, the loss of magnetic field, as Earth's magnetic field is generated by its rotation around itself. One of the results is the atmospheric and wind changes. Of course, by stopping the rotation of the Earth, the Coriolis effect, which drives the wind and ocean current, would disappear, and so air would simply move from hot equator to cold poles in a direct path, creating different and violent weather systems. Question 3. Give the scientific term. Number 1. A resultant force equal to 0. The resultant force equal to 0 is the balanced forces. This is the single force that represents the combined effect of all the individual forces acting on an object. When the resultant force is 0, the object is said to be in a state of equilibrium. According to Newton's first law, if the forces are balanced, an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will continue moving at a constant velocity. So, our scientific meaning is the balanced forces. Give the scientific term. Number 2. The rearrangement of genetic material between homologous chromosomes during the first meiotic division. This is, of course, the crossing over phenomena that takes place to allow the genetic variation between the formed gametes like sperms, ova in animals and humans, and also like pollen grains and ovules in the plants. The second part of question 3 is the question of compare between. Compare between number 1, exothermic and endothermic reactions. To compare between the exothermic and endothermic reaction, we have the first point of comparison, the energy direction. In exothermic reaction, releases energy to the surrounding, while the endothermic reaction absorbs the energy from the surrounding. The second point of comparison, the temperature change. In exothermic reaction, the surroundings feel warmer, while in endothermic reaction, the surroundings feel colder. The point of comparison, chemical bonds. In exothermic reaction, more energy is released when forming bonds than is used to break the bonds, while in endothermic reaction, more energy is required to break bonds than is released when forming them. Our common examples in exothermic reaction, the combustion or burning of wood or coal, or the reaction of quicklime with water. The endothermic reaction, like the melting of ice cubes. Compare between number 2, elastic and inelastic collision. The first point of comparison, the kinetic energy. In elastic collision, no loss in kinetic energy before and after the collision, while in elastic collision, not conserved. The kinetic energy is not conserved. Some kinetic energy is converted into heat, sound, or deformation. The second point of comparison, the object behavior. In elastic collision, objects bounce off each other without any deformation, without damage, while in elastic collision, objects may stick together or become deformed. Our examples: elastic collision, like subatomic particles collision; inelastic collision, like what happens in a car crash or a ball of clay hitting the floor. Compare between number 3, somatic and reproductive cells. Our point of comparison, number 1, the definition. What is meant by somatic cell? The somatic cell, the cells that include all the cells of the organism body except the reproductive cells. The reproductive cells, they are the specialized cells responsible for sexual reproduction in living organisms. Examples of somatic cells: skin cells, muscle cells, heart cells, while the examples of gametes, the sperm, the ovum in female and the sperm in male. The third point of comparison, the chromosomes. In somatic cell, there is a diploid number 2n. They contain a full double set of chromosomes, or the whole number of chromosomes, while the gametes, the haploid number. They contain only a half set of chromosomes n. For the division process, somatic cells produced through mitosis cell division, while gametes produced through meiosis cell division. For the genetic variation, somatic cells identical to the parent cell. In reproductive cells, genetically unique due to the crossing over phenomena that takes place in meiosis cell division. Compare between number 4, temperature in polar regions and at equator. At equator, the angle of sunlight is vertical, as sunlight hits at nearly 90-degree angle, which is a perpendicular light rays. In polar regions, the angle of sunlight is inclined. Sunlight hits at a very low angle. The second point of comparison, the energy concentration. In equator, there is high energy concentration. The solar energy is concentrated over a small area, while in polar regions, the energy concentration is low. The same amount of energy is spread over much larger area, making the energy concentration very low. The atmospheric path. In equator, the sunlight passes through less atmosphere to reach the surface because it's a direct ray, so the atmospheric path is very short. While in polar region, sunlight travels through a thicker layer of atmosphere, and this causes losing of heat because the sun rays falls in an inclined way, so it's a long atmospheric path. The climate at equator is hot and humid throughout the year, while in polar region the climate is cold with extreme seasonal variation. Now let's go forward to our last question, and the first part of this question, correct the underlined word. Number 1. The change of matter directly from the solid state to the gaseous state is called melting. Of course, this process, changing of matter from solid to gas without passing by the liquid state, is called sublimation. Correct the underlined words. Number 2. Pollen grains of insect pollinated flowers are transferred by wind. Of course, the pollen grain of insect pollinated flowers are transferred by insect. The second part of our fourth question is state the importance of each of the following. Number 1. Understanding the requirement of combustion reactions. It's very important for fire safety and prevention to learn about the 3 elements needed for combustion, which are fuel, oxygen, and heat, so we can prevent fires by keeping these elements separate, by storing flammable materials away from heat sources. Also, firefighting. To extinguish a fire, you must remove at least one of these 3 elements, like using water to remove heat, or shutting off a gas valve to remove the fuel. In industrial efficiency, in engines and power plants, understanding this requirement allows engineers to create the perfect mix of fuel and air to get the most energy with the least amount of pollution. The last point is the environmental protection. It helps in managing controlled burns in forests to prevent large uncontrolled wildfires by removing excess fuel from the forest floor. State the importance of each of the following. Number 2. Studying collisions in physics. Understanding how objects interact during a collision is a fundamental part of mechanics and applications like safety engineering, as engineers study collisions to design safer cars, helmets, and protective gears and tools. Also, accident reconstruction. Physics allows investigators to determine the speed and direction of vehicles before a crash simply by looking at the final positions and the damage caused. The third point is sports science. From baseball to soccer, understanding collisions helps athletes and coaches optimize performance, knowing exactly how to strike a ball to maximize the momentum and direction. Last point, space exploration. Scientists use collision physics to calculate the path of meteorites and to plan gravity assists where a spacecraft collides with a planet's orbital path to gain speed. State the importance of each of the following. Number 3. Meiosis in living organisms. Importance of meiosis in living organisms. Meiosis is the specialized cell division that produces gametes like sperms and egg cells. It maintains the chromosome number. As in meiosis cell division, the parent cell divides to produce 4 daughter cells with half number of chromosomes N. Number 2, the genetic variation that caused through the crossing over phenomena. State the importance of each of the following. Number 4, satellites in weather forecasting. Satellites are main tools for modern broadcast for several reasons. Number 1, global monitoring. They provide a continuous wide-scale view of the Earth's atmosphere, allowing scientists to track massive storm systems like hurricanes across the oceans where ground stations cannot reach. Number 2, the data collection. They measure critical variables such as cloud cover, temperature, humidity, wind speeds at various altitudes. Number 3, early warning. By detecting severe weather patterns early, satellites save lives by providing enough time for evacuations and emergency preparations. Dear students, this was our last question in our session today. Hope you the best in your coming exams. Me, Mrs. Suhair Zaki, was with you today on the live stream platform of Ministry of Education under the supervision of the Science Consultant Office. All the best for you, inshallah.